Okay, once again, thank you guys for coming. And we would start our topic about the DAOs and governments on this. We've seen the rise of enormous amount of DAOs recently, especially last year. However, most of those organizations aren't truly decentralized. So we should call them digital organizations, or how we should call them, what they are, because not of them are fully decentralized. So what does it take to be a DAO? Yeah, that would be the question. And we can start with Sven.
So it was quite difficult to hear you because we have a lot of background noise and people are picking up drinks and bottles and coffees. But maybe if you can just repeat it again so that we can listen to it and I can...
Sure. So what does it take to be a DAO? Because a lot of organizations, we've seen the rise last year, they're not decentralized, they're calling themselves this way. I would say that they're digital organizations. So what does it take to be a DAO?
Yeah, so I think we have to look back at the history of the terminology, decentralized autonomous organizations. I came across it the first time when Vitalik was presenting in 2014 Ethereum, and it was quite amazing and new, and it was hard for me to imagine what it was. I grasped the concept the easiest way when we were talking about a group of machines and the machine economy, a concept which is not so much in the news today. We haven't seen them coming up. One of the first examples was a network of vending machines who is basically organizing himself and ordering new products when they're empty and making all the payments, etc. Then we have seen lately that we have seen the first upcoming of the DAO presented by Christoph earlier today, which was actually DAO to collect funds and to invest them again in curated and presented projects. That was quite innovative, but was that a DAO? I'm not sure about it. I see that for today we have to rely on the smart contracts to provide that autonomous or that automatic and autonomous in it. But what we see today is an upcoming of groups of people who have no legal wrapper and who avoid to have a legal wrapper and call themselves a DAO. And that reminds me a bit the ICO wave, where you had people just saying, oh, we are not a security token, we're a utility token. And actually, we have a legal framework. And if you're not aware about it, the forces are actually looking at you. So we had at the ICO wave the Howey test. We don't have this for the DAO. Actually, there's no clear definition about the DAO. But in my mind, you need to have a decentralized structure. You have to ensure that there's not one or a few persons basically controlling it. And here is already the issue, because every DAO has a founder, whether it's Bitcoin with Satoshi, whether it's other projects we have seen coming up. And these founders are incredibly important for the progress and the acceptance and the development of the DAO. Then you need a governance infrastructure to enable the democratic or plutocratic participation of the people at the governance. And you need different tools who are documenting the different votes on different projects. So you need many tools, you need a framework, you need dedication.
Okay, thank you. Now it's to Andrei. So you layer one solution helps DAOs, right, with the governance. So
of course, but I fully agree with you, Sven. I can try to provide my favorite definition. What is a DAO? DAO is a voluntary, borderless association of like-minded people. So we have to pay respect to organizers of this conference for choosing such a good name. It's a true DAO conference with such a good name. But this is the main difference between the nation-state governance and DAO governance. Yeah, in a nation-state, governance is not voluntary. If you're born in Germany, you are subject of German governance. It's not decentralized, of course, and it's not borderless because states are limited by the borders. But the state governance has a very strong enforcement possibilities. That's the main difference between DAO and nation-state governance.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, the same question to Kevin, coming from Switzerland, when we see a lot of regulations regarding crypto. So,
yeah, first of all, hi everyone, and great to speak on such a historic day. I remember about 8 years ago, roughly, I was at the 10 million ICO party in the headquarters of the Ethereum Foundation in Switzerland, and it feels a bit like a similar event. Yeah, I mean, fundamentally, I mean, the universe is an information system, and also the living organism is an information system that is trying to sustain its internal order. And as we are now building this cybernetic organism based on a blockchain that looks like sort of the structure of the future, we need these micro building blocks similar to like a neural net in artificial intelligence is sort of the micro structural intelligence that we're building. And well, in the end, it's all about what is the sort of this microstructure that's going to sustain. And I think the important part is really the decentralized part. I think decentralization needs a certain scale, because in the end, you're making a lot of system design trade-offs. I mean, decentralization brings a lot of stability, security, but also at a certain cost. And I think the only DAOs that work are Bitcoin, Ethereum.
all right, yeah. I think they're saying that too many organizations try to name themselves DAOs. So that's why we need someday get some more clear definition. And staying with you, Kevin, I think there's a lot of concern how hard it is to reach a consensus within a DAO. So what do we need to do to make it easier and faster, as this is the most important thing?
I mean, I would even question the question if you want to make it easier and faster, because I think it's inherently a trade-off of security, that things are not going fast. And even have a certain unpredictability in the decision-making is the ultimate security feature. And that's what we're seeing in Bitcoin, that we're seeing in Ethereum. And I think that's why a lot of these folks in having this kind of ideology that are criticizing on-chain governance in substrate or Polkadot-based systems. So I think a lot of startups, they want to have a digital company and not actually a DAO. I think it's a bit of a misnomer. It's like calling any organization in the world just an organization. I mean, there are different types of organizations, from cooperatives to corporations. But even when you look at the Fortune 100 companies, name 2 companies that are the same. Just doesn't exist. So I think the challenge is more, how do we get from a small organization that should be fast moving to eventually a large organization that should be secure. I think this is the ultimate challenge we have in designing DAOs, because the natural sort of mechanism of any organism is to be more efficient, and I think systems tend to centralize. And so if you start centralized, how can we become decentralized? I think this is where the challenge lies.
Okay, thank you. So then what is more important, to being fast with decisions or rather being decentralized, which will take more time, I believe? What is your opinion on that, Sven?
Yeah, so is it more important to be fast in taking the decisions or to be decentralized? Well, I would pick up Kevin's answer to it, so maybe the answer should be redesigned. So fast is an issue. It starts already. I don't know how many of you are already familiar with the governance on an operational level on DAOs. Usually it's a group of a core team who is coming up with some specific questions, some issues which need to be resolved, and which are going to become a voting proposal to the community. Then, in order to really share as best as possible all the relevant information for the community to make an educated and a profound choice about the votes, you have basically to read through a lot of documentation. It starts already here, the differentiation. Do you want a fast voting? Then you need to keep the information that you share with the community small and easy accessible. On the other hand, then you would keep away information from the community. Also the points, this is what I criticize often when I look at how DAOs are governed. The core team is actually selecting what the community is voting on. And the community may have different ideas about, but don't get through with their proposals what the issues are. So I think the issues are not about the fast aspect or the aspect of the speed. You have some DAOs addressing this by creating new voting mechanisms where they reward basically the people who are showing commitments to a DAO by giving them more votes. The issue is with the voting on the DAOs is if you take away also the very low participation rate at DAOs, it's usually between 5 and 15%, and 20% is already awesome, then you have many more aspects to resolve on it.
Yeah, thank you. And coming to that, to you, Andrei, so not a lot of people are actually participating in voting within the DAOs. So do you see any way we can have some improvement here?
Sure. First of all, we have to try. Yeah, as Karen already mentioned, Bitcoin is a DAO as well. Yeah, it's maybe the first real DAO. And it runs fine since more than 10 years. And this is decentralized, have incentives, but does not have any built-in governance. But governance of blockchain is fine, of Bitcoin blockchain is fine. It's not technically built in and doesn't require even some votings, on-chain votings at least. So voting or participation is not really necessary. It depends on your governance model. You should be able to define that different governance models. Maybe you have a community with lazy people who doesn't like provide votes. They should delegate the votes, but that flexibility should be ensured by the chosen governance model. As I already mentioned, Bitcoin provides wonderful DAO model, but it's limited only on Bitcoin. You cannot use Bitcoin's governance for universal goals. It doesn't work. Many people trying to do this, but without any notable success. And then they go to smart contracts and trying to design its own governance. But governance has so many aspects, you cannot implement all aspects at the beginning. It should be live governance. It should be adaptable to the needs. And this is one of the challenges, to provide an adaptable or living governance. For example, you have a lot of governance parameters. A good example for it is a MakerDAO. MakerDAO has really a huge amount of parameters, and new parameters are coming with the time, because you cannot predict that you need it. And this is one of the biggest challenges, besides a couple of others, to governance frameworks or products. And we are just in a learning phase, how to provide a general universal governance.
Okay, so I understand there is no one framework which can be used in every DAO, but we have to experiment on every time we want to create one. What do you think, Kevin?
Well, we're certainly in a phase where we're still very early and experimenting, and I expect that we're going to see some models like the cooperation. I mean, that also was an innovation at some point in, I think, in the 19th century, and cooperatives and foundations and these kinds of lots of high-level concepts, and these will then be adopted. But I think in the end, every DAO will have, let's say, at the bottom part of the DAO structure still will look very different from DAO to DAO, given its different model and purpose. But what I'd like to add on the voting participation, I mean, all we're doing in decentralized systems is economic incentive design. And when you look at the economic incentives to vote, if the stakes are low, you're not going to spend a lot of time participating in the governance. And there's someone coming from Switzerland, the only direct democracy in the world. I'm coming from one of the only 2 cantons where you have to pay a fine if you don't vote. And the voting participation is twice as high, roughly, as all other cantons. And the fine is just 3 Swiss francs. So, I think as the stakes are becoming higher, and the incentives sort of better to participate. And I think we also need to look at the different DAOs. I mean, most people are just speculators. They put a few $100 or a few $10 into a pot, and they don't care about what's actually going on. It wouldn't be even worth investing the time. But when you look at, for instance, a banking consortium of 100 banks, where their business for their payment or relies on a payment system, I'm sure all of these 100 banks are going to participate in the voting and the governance. So I think as the stakes are becoming higher, this problem will be solved.
Okay, thank you. And Andrei, what do you think what we can do to incentivize people more? So we have to use tokens and actually get them value they can exchange later on, like it's made in Maker, or there's some other ways as well?
Yeah, we should create attractive tokenomics to incentivize people, but this is the next challenge. To create a good tokenomics. So that's the reason why I said we need an adoptable and configurable governance models to learn how to change the tokenomics, how to deal with different communities. So that's the reason we at Q working on such an adoptable governance model. We didn't find another way as to create our own layer 1 blockchain to be able go deep in the consensus and create the governance consensus.
Okay, great. Thank you. And Sven, what do you think we can improve within the DAOs? So anything which can make adoption of this form of organizing communities better?
So I think your question is valid. We have seen last year an explosion of new DAO tools coming up, and this was considered one of the hot topics in investing, because this is a pain point for the DAOs. Currently, how does it work, the governance in DAOs? You have on the one hand the community organization around Discord, which is the software, favorite software for it, the communication towards the general public or the outer team, the extended team goes through crypto Twitter, and then you have a voting tool, Snapshot, which allows to basically take a a snapshot of your voting behavior, and you identify yourself with a wallet. So you have many breaks and the entire process, and then you need to read documents which are either PDFs or blocks somewhere in post. So this is a time-consuming concept, and if there's someone coming up with a tool which makes it easy to get the information you want to vote, and then maybe on top of it use an incentivization mechanism to reward those people who are voting and who are contributing to the DAO, then you may have maybe a more vivid and larger participation at the governance. Yeah, and maybe also a point which we also need to consider. Many DAOs today are not aligned with the current legal framework and environment. And this issue also asks for some of the core team to stay anonymous. So I'm participating in several DAOs where the core team is anonymous, and you need to basically trust them that they are not doing any stupid stuff and that they are responsible. But you need also to accept that they have to protect themselves in order to not be pursued by any kind of either legal enforcement agency or any kind of unhappy investors or contributors. And here the intention is not a malicious one, but that's a challenge for people then, you know, to make the choice. Do you trust these guys or not? But it's really about protecting the individuals who are inventing it, because a DAO is a process, actually. It's like you mentioned, of course, Bitcoin. And Satoshi started with, I think, 50 servers, and then rolled it out. So every DAO has a process behind itself. And we have seen this, for example, at Shapeshift, the decentralized exchange, which moved from a company to a DAO. We could also here in Berlin, an excellent example about how the process is perfectly managed is within the Gnosis ecosystem, where you had some assets like the DEX cow swap, which has been basically spin off and then moved over a transition period, and a process which is very carefully managed and very carefully aligned with law's recommendation to a full-blown DAO until it's decentralized. So
okay, yeah. Thank you very much for that. And I think we got time for one question. So if there is some at the audience, I can handle the microphone.
I have a question about the multi-layered governance models. So what do you think about, maybe I'll try to sketch the situation. Imagine a fully decentralized or sufficiently decentralized ownership structure where lots of people own this DAO. And these people decide, unlike in a direct democracy, these people decide to delegate their power on making certain decisions to a certain body, which we can call like executive management of this DAO. And this executive management can be displaced anytime by a vote of everyone. So they're accountable, but they make most of the decisions for this company, as long as everyone is satisfied with that. Do you think it is compatible with the model of a DAO in a classical sense, or what is your thinking of that? Maybe I'll ask.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I have an opinion on this. I mean, in the end, it's all about making certain design trade-offs in the system, and obviously it creates a lot of centralization. And when you try to model it, just try to provide sort of economic security and try to model that. Usually, no sort of representative or executive, how you call it, could stake enough tokens to have a secure sort of model in this case. So potentially also something like a legal liability could be very beneficial, because you put a number, quantify not going to jail, for instance. There are a few processes that could be used to design with a lot of delays and in the decision-making, approval and reversal of certain decisions that can make the process more secure. I mean, historically, since gas fees have been so high, we try to avoid putting a lot on chain. But yeah, I think there's a lot going on. I think Portugal is leading the way when it comes to delegation at the moment. But yeah, I think there's a lot to be learned in the upcoming years.
Great. Please.
Yeah. If you look at the really big companies, they are like DAO, almost like DAOs, because they are borderless. They are around the globe. They are relatively decentralized. Of course, they have an CEO, but that CEO cannot make any decision, every decision in the company. And they are over or above of the nation states. They are creating their own private arbitration, I would say, and private policies. And this is a huge step towards the DAO future. It's not fully digital and not fully decentralized, but on a halfway to the decentralization. And I would say currently the good working governance models are hybrid models. Bitcoin is a hybrid model as well. As I said, there is no built-in electronic governance in Bitcoin. There are people who decide, the co-development team, what is the next feature in Bitcoin, for example. And the same in DAOs. The pure electronic DAO doesn't provide an enforcement solution. And to enforce the decisions, you often need the real world enforcement mechanism, unfortunately. But if you combine the best from these two worlds, it will work.
Okay, thank you very much. We run out of time, so thank you very much, Sven, Kevin, and Andrei, for joining us for this panel. And for the audience, please stay as we get NFT panel. After that, there's a lunch break, 20 minutes at the rooftop. Thank you very much, guys.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks. Yeah, thank you.